We're back for part 2 of our Nurburgring prep. We've still got a fair bit of work to get carried out, but before we do so, we're going to do some intake testing. Previously, we fitted a Pipercross intake to our FL5 Civic Type R, but today we've reverted the car back to stock. We're going to carry out some dyno runs to see where the car's sitting now. We'll then fit the Pipercross intake back on without removing the car from the dyno and see, are we getting any gains? So a few base runs done on the car, initially just to get the car warmed up and set it off on the dyno, but then the last 4 results there we had 340, 339.5, 340 again, and then another 339. So nice repeatable results in stock format. So what we'll do now is we'll get this intake removed from the car, the Pipercross refitted, and go through the same again. So I wanted to make the most of the space whilst the airbox was out of the way and get another job ticked off the list, and that's to fit some of the Acuity shifter cable bushes. They're now installed and should give a little bit more of a precise feel to the shifting. Let's get on with the intake. So as I'm fitting up the intake now, it's probably a good point to mention that we've previously covered the fitting of the Pipercross intake from the full unboxing to having it installed on the car. If you haven't already, you might want to go back and check out that video because we list out all the tools needed to do the full intake installation. So intake reinstalled, we know it makes a lot of noise, but is it going to give us the extra power? So with the new intake fitted on the car, we've carried out a few more dyno runs, and you can see from the stock figure that we left out at 339, we've now increased up to 346, and then all runs around there, 345, 344, and the power drops off ever so slightly at 343, but then giving it another run again, 344, back to 346 again. So it's going to show that we're making around 4 to 6 horsepower with this intake and a slight increase in torque. So intake's on the car and it's doing its job, but I couldn't help but notice, looking at the turbo tube, it looks very, very familiar. It looks very similar size to what would be an Eventuri turbo tube. So it looks like it's going to be a great fit once it's roughly placed in there. I think this is going to work. So we'll take the turbo tube off the car, we'll fit one of these up, we'll try it with the Pipercross and with the standard airbox and see will we get any extra gains with this one. Taking a look over the 2 intakes before we get the carbon Eventuri onto the car, and it looks like the stock size is exactly the same as what's on the Eventuri. Eventuri Turbo Tube's been fitted along with this stock airbox. I've cleared down the graph, so we've only got the stock power figures on the screen there. Certainly looks the part. Is it going to make any power? So Eventuri Turbo Tube and stock airbox run on dyno. You can see from the results here that passing on from our 340 in the stock format, we've got results of 344, 345, and then some of the higher results of 347, 348 as well, the highest that we got. The torque has seemed to increase around 10 pound-foot in places, mainly around the mid-range area, but it looks to work quite nicely. So I'm really excited to see what Eventuri come up with on the full intake for this car and what the overall power figures will be for that. Finally, let's put the Pipercross intake back on the car and see if we get any difference in power. So a mixed set of results with the Pipercross and Eventuri combined. Our initial power readings of 340, we moved on from there, and our first reading with this combination, 348.9. So I really thought we was going to be onto a winner with that one, but subsequently the power seemed to drop off. 342 repeated a couple of times, and then 345, 344. Really goes to show today our winning combo is going to be the Eventuri Turbo Tube with the stock airbox. But obviously we're looking forward to testing more intakes as they all start to come to market. So that finishes us up on the dyno for today. I'm going to take the car off the ramp because there's a couple of bits on the inside. Obviously I've done the Acuity shifter cable bushes down there. But I've also got the old shifter from my last FK8, which has got the spring upgrade and the arm. So I'm going to look to see if this can be fitted into the FL5 as well. We've also had a big box of aero just delivered today, so that will be going onto the car before we make our trip. So after removing the trim and looking at some of the shifter, I can see that the Acuity bits won't cross over onto the FL5. The little rocker arm and the spring both look to be different sizes, although I do think the base bushes will work. But for the moment, we're going to leave this and focus our efforts on getting the car ready. We've got the brake kit to fit still. Intake testing out of the way and some interesting results, but we're going to concentrate our efforts now back on the FL5. So we've just had our new wheels turn up, which means we can get the APs fitted. So the brake kit that we're going to be fitting is one that's quite familiar to us. It's the AP 9660 caliper kit. It uses a 6-pot caliper, it's nice and light, and also a 380mm disc. Like I mentioned, they fit on the FK2, FK8, and now going to be the FL5. We've already got our Paragon brake kit on the rear, which we're going to be using standard pads with, but on the front, we're going to be using Pagid RS29 pads. You may have also noticed that we've been extremely lucky to receive one of the very first APR front lip kits for the FL5. Looks very functional and clearly fits really, really nicely. It's a good bit of kit, and we just hope that gives us an extra little bit of downforce on the front end. You may have also noticed that once we got the front bumper off, we actually applied another small duct just to the front of the grille here to help guide a little bit more air up into the intake area. So again, we'll get this back on the dyno and see, are we receiving any more power through aiding a little bit more airflow. Talking of dynos, we've just unlocked our ECU, which means we can now start tuning with Hondata on the FL5 platform. Hopefully Romain's going to have a little bit of time for us and can just dial in a little bit more boost. Our AP brakes have just been fitted and you're taking a look at the first set of Dream Spirit R wheels. We've covered a few aspects on the car this week, from power modifications, brakes, suspension and a little bit of aero on the car, and we've also managed to get the car on the dyno with Remain and increase the power just a touch. Should make for an interesting drive. Power-wise, we haven't actually increased the overall peak power. We're still around 340 to 350 horsepower, but it has increased a lot throughout the mid-range. We're around 20 to 25 horsepower gains throughout the revs. We're nearly ready to leave now, and the only things really left to do are put some clothes in a bag, stick the helmets in the boot and make our way down to the Uri tunnel. Misha's going to be driving the car over the weekend, so we're really interested to see what the car can do in the hands of a professional. Whilst this video airs, we're going to be lapping the Nurburgring, so make sure you head over to our Instagram where we'll be giving you live updates throughout the week. Also, we'll be bringing you a YouTube video next week, so hit the subscribe button as you're not going to want to miss this. We've had loads of parts fitted to our Civic this week, so we'd love to know what you guys think in the comments below, particularly these. I better get packed up, hit the like, share and subscribe, and I'll see you next week.